The bone broke quietly, not with a scream, not with a crash, just a small, soft snap, like a twig giving way. And Elena stood in her marble kitchen, 8 months pregnant, staring at her wrist, bending in a direction wrists are never supposed to bend. Her husband was already reaching for his phone, not to call 911, to call his publicist. That detail, that single revealing detail, will tell you everything you need to know about Garrett Whitfield, a billionaire, a pillar of his community, a man who had spent 3 years building a prison out of designer furniture and security cameras, and a woman who used to argue cases in front of federal judges and had somehow, somewhere, forgotten that she ever did. But here is what Garrett did not know when he drove his wife to the emergency room that night. He did not know that the X-ray technician on duty was her brother, a brother he had spent 2 years convincing her had abandoned her. He did not know that the spiral fracture on that X-ray screen was about to set in motion a federal investigation, a wire operation, a life insurance policy with a forged signature, and the unraveling of a criminal empire worth $47 million. And he did not know that the woman he had spent 3 years making smaller was about to become the most important witness the FBI had seen in a decade. Stay with me, because what happens next is going to change how you see strength, survival, and what it actually means to fight back. Lesson line. Sometimes the person who saves you is not a stranger. It is the family member who never stopped looking, finally finding you in the one room your husband could not follow you into. Closing value. This story is about more than one woman's survival. It is about the slow, invisible architecture of control. How it is built quietly, brick by brick, until the walls are so familiar you stop seeing them as walls. It is about the moment someone finally believes you. And it is about what becomes possible when you decide that your daughter deserves a mother who remembers who she is. If this story made you feel something, if it gave you language for something you have witnessed or lived or are living right now, please hit the like button. It tells me these stories matter, and it helps other people who need them find their way here. Leave a comment below. Tell me which moment stopped you cold. I read every single one, and your words are never wasted here. Share this with someone who needs to hear it tonight. You may not know who that person is. Share it anyway. And if you want more stories like this, real human stories about people who faced impossible odds and found their way through, subscribe and turn on notifications. We are here every week. You are not alone. And neither is she.
The sound of bone breaking was quieter than Elena expected. She had imagined. In the abstract, distant way, you imagine things you never believe will actually happen to you. That it would be loud, dramatic, the kind of sound that would bring neighbors running, that would shatter windows, that would announce itself to the world as the catastrophe it was. Instead, it was soft, almost polite. A small, clean snap. Like a branch giving way under the weight of too much snow, Elena stared at her wrist. The angle was wrong. Her arm bent where no arm should bend, at a place that was not a joint, in a direction that was not possible. The pain had not arrived yet. Just cold. Just ice water flooding through her chest and spreading outward to her fingertips. Just the particular silence of the human body in the first seconds of shock, before it understands what has happened to it. Garrett was still talking. She could hear his voice from somewhere behind the ringing in her ears. Controlled, precise, already shifting from the white heat of the moment into something practiced, something prepared. He had a gift for that, for moving from fury to composure in the time it took most people to take a single breath. She had once found it impressive, standing in her pristine kitchen on a Tuesday night in October, 8 months pregnant, her wrist at an impossible angle. She understood that it had never been impressive. It had always been a warning she was not equipped to read. Look what you made me do. 5 words, the same 5 words every time, in every variation for 2 years, as if her arm had broken itself, as if she had walked into his hands, as if gravity were somehow her fault. Elena Bradford had once argued motions in front of federal judges. She had once cross-examined witnesses who lied for a living and made them tell the truth anyway. She had graduated second in her class at Georgetown Law and had an offer from the Attorney General's office the week before she met Garrett Whitfield at a charity gala and decided, for reasons she could no longer reconstruct, that love was more important than ambition. That woman felt very far away right now. "We need to go to the hospital," she said. Her voice came out so smaller than she intended. She hated how small it sounded. "Of course," Garrett said. He was already getting his keys, already composing his face into the expression of a worried husband. He had her by the elbow, the good arm, not the broken one, guiding her toward the garage with a gentleness that would have looked, to anyone watching, like tenderness. In the car, he gave her the story. "You were carrying the Pottery Barn boxes from the garage, the nursery organization project. You've been overdoing it. I've told you that. The doctor has told you that. You just don't listen. You tripped on the bottom step. The boxes threw off your balance." He had the specific boxes ready. The ones she had actually ordered that were actually still in the garage, unopened. He had thought this through before it happened. She understood, sitting in the passenger seat watching the streetlights blur past, that he had planned for this. That somewhere, in the architecture of his controlling, meticulous mind, he had accounted for the possibility of a broken bone, had prepared a narrative, had selected the Pottery Barn boxes like a prop in a production he had been rehearsing in secret. "You tripped on the stairs," Garrett said again. His hand found her knee. "Just enough pressure. Remember, I tripped on the stairs," Elena repeated. "Good girl." They drove 17 minutes to Metro General. Elena counted every one of them. Counting meant thinking. Thinking meant not feeling. Not feeling meant surviving. She had learned this system slowly, incrementally, the way you learn any survival skill. Through repetition and necessity and the quiet, grinding accumulation of moments exactly like this one. At the emergency entrance, a nurse with a wheelchair was already approaching. Garrett stepped out of the car and transformed completely. Worried husband, devoted father-to-be. His hand on Elena's back was warm and steady and looked to every single person in that parking lot like love. "She fell," he told the triage nurse, his voice thick with what sounded exactly like concern, "on the stairs. She's been pushing herself too hard with the nursery, and I should have paid more attention. And now?" He pressed his fingers to his eyes. "I just feel terrible." The nurse looked at Elena's arm, then at her belly, then at Elena's face, depicted. Something moved across her expression, something careful and knowing, but she typed into her computer and she handed them forms and the waiting room swallowed them whole. Elena Hartford, a tech in blue scrubs, called from the doorway. She had used Garrett's name automatically. 2 years of conditioning. She stood, and Garrett stood with her, and the tech smiled the polite, apologetic smile of someone doing their job. "Just the patient for X-ray, please. The room is small. You can wait here." Garrett's jaw tightened. She felt it, even from across the room. The microscopic shift in his posture that meant he did not like this, would remember this, would discuss this later at home when there were no witnesses. But he sat, because he had to, because there was nothing else he could do, and Elena followed the tech down the long corridor, under the fluorescent lights, past the posters about hand washing and blood pressure management and the importance of communication with your healthcare provider. She almost laughed at that last one. The X-ray room smelled like antiseptic and something metallic. The table was hard and cold through her dress. The navy blue one Garrett had bought her, conservative, appropriate, the kind of dress a good wife wore. She sat carefully. The tech had his back to her, pulling up her file on the computer. "Okay," he said. "Let's see what we've got." "Can you confirm your name and date of birth?" "Elena Bradford," she said automatically. The name that was hers before everything. March 15th, 1992. The tech froze. His hand stopped mid-reach for the lead apron. The room went absolutely still. Then, slowly, he turned around, and Elena Bradford looked at her brother for the first time in 2 years. "Noah," she whispered. His face did the thing faces do when the world rearranges itself without warning. Shock first, then recognition. Then his eyes dropped to her belly, swollen and obvious, and then to her arm, and then back to her face, and she watched him understand everything in the space of 4 seconds. "Elena," he said. His voice cracked on both syllables. "What happened?" She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at this man who had taught her to ride a bike, who had walked her down the aisle when their father was too sick to do it, who she had been forbidden to contact for 24 months because Garrett had told her Noah thought she was an embarrassment, and who Garrett had told she would later learn that Elena thought he was jealous of her success. "I fell," she heard herself say. The words came out automatic, smooth, practiced. Down the stairs. Noah said nothing. He came to her side, positioned her arm on the plate with hands so gentle it made her want to cry, and then he stepped behind the shield, and the machine clicked, and the image appeared on the monitor. He stared at it for a long time. Then he came back around and crouched in front of her so they were eye level, the way he used to when she was small and scared, and he needed her to actually hear him. "Elena," he said carefully, "this is a spiral fracture. Do you know what that means?" She said nothing. "It means someone twisted your arm," he said. "It does not happen from falling. I fell." "How many months pregnant are you?" 8. His eyes closed for just a moment. When they opened, they held something she recognized as the particular combination of grief and rage that has nowhere immediate to go. "Stay here," he said. "Please just stay here." "Noah." She grabbed his wrist with her good hand. Please don't make this worse." He looked at her, really looked at her, in the way almost no one had looked at her in 2 years, like she was a person rather than a piece of furniture in someone else's house. "Elena," he said quietly, "your arm is broken. You are 8 months pregnant. How much worse can it get?" He was out the door before she could answer, and Elena Bradford sat alone in the X-ray room, listening to the machine hum, her hand resting on her belly, whispering to the daughter she already knew was in there, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, baby girl." But underneath the apology, underneath the fear, something else was happening. Something small and stubborn and almost unrecognizable after so long, the first thread of relief. Dr. Margaret Collins had been practicing emergency medicine for 18 years, and she had learned to read rooms the way other people read faces. Instantly, completely, and with very little margin for error. She read this room in approximately 4 seconds. Pregnant woman, spiral fracture, husband in the waiting room who had introduced himself to 3 different staff members in the last 20 minutes, brother who was currently vibrating with the specific frequency of a person trying very hard not to do something he would regret. She pulled up a stool, sat down to make herself smaller, and looked at Elena Bradford with the kind of eyes that had seen too much to be easily fooled. "Your brother is worried about you," Dr. Collins said. "I'm fine." Elena's response was immediate, reflexive. The verbal equivalent of a hand raised in front of a face. "I just fell. May I examine you?" She didn't wait for the answer. She rolled up Elena's sleeve. The bruises were there like a map. Purple and yellow and the particular greenish-brown of injuries at different stages of healing. She moved carefully, professionally, noting the fingerprint shapes on the upper arm, the defensive patterning on the forearms, the places where someone had gripped and held and controlled. "These are not consistent with a fall," Dr. Collins said, quietly. "I bruise easily. Pregnancy thins the skin." "Elena?" Dr. Collins set down the sleeve. "I am a mandated reporter. Do you know what that means?" A pause. Then, "No. It means that when I see evidence of what I am currently seeing, I am legally required to document it and notify authorities. It is not optional. It is not something I can choose not to do because the situation is complicated." She leaned forward slightly. "And Elena, I want you to understand. You do not have to decide anything tonight. You do not have to press charges. You do not have to be brave in any particular way. I just need you to let me help you." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Elena looked up, and the expression on her face was something Dr. Collins would later describe to her husband as the most heartbreaking thing she had ever seen in 18 years of emergency medicine. Not pain, not fear, but the particular exhaustion of someone who has been holding up a very heavy thing for a very long time and has just been told they are allowed to put it down. "He's in the waiting room," Elena said. Her voice was lower. "If he thinks I said something, if he thinks we're moving you to a private room," Dr. Collins said, "for overnight monitoring. You're 8 months pregnant and you've had a traumatic injury. That is a medical decision. He doesn't get a vote." Things moved quickly after that. A wheelchair, a different corridor, a private room with a security guard outside, and a window overlooking the parking lot where, if you looked carefully, you could see a well-dressed man making phone calls with the focused aggression of someone accustomed to making problems disappear. Detective James Harlow arrived at 9:17, eating a granola bar, and immediately asked the nurse at the station whether the vending machine had anything that wasn't, quote, aggressively cardboard. The nurse said she didn't know. He said that was a shame, and would she mind pointing him toward the patient in room 14. He sat down across from Elena with the particular unhurried quality of a man who understood that the fastest way to get someone to talk was to make them believe you had nowhere else to be. He had kind eyes and a forgettable face and had worked domestic violence cases for 11 years, which meant he had also learned to read rooms. He read this one and didn't say anything about what he saw, just opened his notebook. "Mrs. Whitfield," he began. "Bradford," Elena said. "My name is Elena Bradford." He looked up, nodded once, made a note. "Miss Bradford, why don't you tell me about tonight?" She told him. Not everything, not yet, but the shape of it. The appointment, the dinner, the boxes, the stairs that were not stairs. Harlow wrote in his notebook with the steady patience of someone taking down a grocery list. Which was exactly the right tone, which was exactly why he was good at his job. When she finished, he said, "How long has this been happening?" Elena looked at her hands, A long time? He nodded. You don't have to give me an exact date. Just tell me. Is tonight unusual, or is tonight a version of what most nights look like? She thought about how to answer that. Tonight was unusual in that there was a bone broken. Most nights, the breaks were the kind that don't show up on x-rays. She said that, almost verbatim. Harlow wrote it down without flinching. Noah came back. He had taken his break, had stood in the hallway pressing his back against the wall and trying to breathe, and had then walked back in and sat down next to his sister and taken her good hand in both of his. I'm not leaving, he said. Whatever happens next, I'm not leaving you alone again. She looked at him. He said you didn't want to see me, she said. That you told him I was making a mistake. That you were embarrassed. I tried to see you, Noah said. Dozens of times. He met me at the door, every time. Said you were sleeping, you were sick, you were busy. I called your phone for months before it stopped connecting. He looked at the wall, jaw working. I should have tried harder. I should have shown up with a crowbar and not left until I talked to you directly. Why didn't you? Because he was so convincing, Noah said quietly, and because I kept thinking, maybe she really does need space. Maybe I was too protective. Maybe she's happy, and I just can't accept it. He looked at her. I was wrong. I'm sorry I was wrong. Elena squeezed his hand. He lied to both of us, she said. That's what he does. It's the whole strategy. There was a knock. Agent Diana Reeves walked in, and the room rearranged itself around her in the way rooms tend to rearrange themselves around people who are used to being the most prepared person present. She was 43, sharp-featured, wearing the kind of expression that suggested she had heard every possible version of every possible lie and found all of them mildly tedious. Miss Bradford, she said, I'm Special Agent Diana Reeves, FBI Financial Crimes. I understand you've had quite a night. She sat down. I'd like to make it slightly more complicated. If you're open to it, Elena looked at her. What kind of complicated? Your husband, Reeves said, is Garrett Whitfield, real estate developer. 11 active development projects across 3 states. On paper, entirely legitimate. She paused. We have been watching his money for 14 months. Watching it do what? Move, Reeves said. In ways that money belonging to a legitimate real estate developer does not move. Through shell companies registered in Delaware and Nevada. Into accounts in the Cayman Islands. Out of those accounts, and into construction budgets that are approximately 40% higher than any comparable project in the same markets. Elena was quiet for a moment. Her attorney brain, dormant for 2 years under the accumulated weight of controlled portions and approved social engagements and a smart home system that was not actually smart, but was certainly watching, woke up. Money laundering, she said, through the development projects. The construction overruns are the wash cycle. Reeves looked at her with something that might have been appreciation. Exactly. We believe the source is a cartel operation out of central Mexico. Your husband provides the infrastructure, the shell companies, the legitimate business front, the paper trail that makes dirty money look like construction costs. In return, he takes a percentage, which is, in part, why he is a billionaire and not merely a millionaire. Elena thought about their house, the marble, the pool, the car she was not allowed to drive without permission. Blood money, she said softly. All of it. We need someone on the inside, Reeves said. Someone who has legal access to his office, his files, his home systems. Someone he trusts enough not to watch too carefully. You want me to spy on my husband. I want you to consider it, Reeves said carefully. I want you to hear what it would involve, what we would provide in terms of protection, and then I want you to make a completely free decision. Noah stood up. She just had her arm broken. She is 8 months pregnant, and you are sitting here asking her to walk back into... Agent Reeves, Elena said. What do you need? Harlow, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, finishing his granola bar, said, I like her. Dr. Collins came back with pain medication, and the information that Garrett had been informed Elena would be kept overnight for monitoring given the pregnancy. He had protested. Security had been firm. He was currently in the lobby, and he was going to stay in the lobby. And here was the moment, the first of several, where Elena thought, it's over. He's contained. The hospital knows. The FBI knows. The police know. Noah is here. I am surrounded by people who see the truth. She thought, maybe I don't have to go back. Maybe this is where it ends. She thought, we did it. She was wrong, but she didn't know that yet. The night passed in fragments. Noah stayed. Rachel, her best friend, tracked down through Noah's contacts, arrived at 11:30 with red eyes and a fierceness that reminded Elena of who she had been before, of the woman who used to have people in her corner. They sat together in the small room, the four of them, Elena, Noah, Rachel, Harlow, who had apparently decided he was staying because the granola bar situation in his precinct was no better, and the hospital at least had decent coffee. Elena allowed herself, for the first time in 2 years, to feel something other than fear. It lasted until 9:18 the following morning. That was when Harrison Cole walked through the door. Harrison Cole was this kind of attorney who wore his suits like armor. Bespoke, charcoal gray. The tie a precise Windsor knot that communicated, without a single word, that he billed at $800 an hour and considered that rate a bargain. He arrived at 9:18 with a leather briefcase and a manila folder and the particular smile of a man who was about to ruin someone's morning and had made peace with that fact. Agent Reeves, he said pleasantly. Detective Harlow. He nodded at Elena without looking at her directly, which was itself a statement. My client sends his love, Miss Bradford, and asks me to convey his deep concern for your well-being. Elena said nothing. Cole set the folder on the table. I'll be brief, he said. As of 6:15 this morning, I have filed an emergency motion with Judge Patricia Monroe challenging the reliability of any testimony provided by Miss Bradford in connection with any investigation into my client's affairs. He opened the folder. In support of that motion, I am providing this document. Reeves picked it up. Read it. Her expression did not change, which was a kind of expression in itself. She passed it to Harlow. He read it. He set it down. He looked at Elena. Elena took it. It was a psychiatric evaluation, dated 3 weeks ago. Signed by a Dr. Philip Weston, licensed psychiatrist, practicing in the state. It described Elena Bradford Whitfield as exhibiting symptoms of pregnancy-related delusional disorder, characterized by paranoid ideation, hypervigilance, and an inability to accurately assess interpersonal situations. It described her as an unreliable narrator of her own life. She had never met Dr. Philip Weston. She had never had a psychiatric evaluation. She read the document twice. Then she set it down and looked at Harrison Cole with the steady attention of someone who spent 3 years learning to cross-examine liars. This is fabricated, she said. Cole spread his hands in a gesture of elegant helplessness. My client was concerned about your mental state during the pregnancy. He arranged an evaluation through his physician network. The doctor's assessment, while unfortunate, is a matter of medical record. I have never met this man, Elena said. The evaluation was conducted via telehealth, Cole said smoothly, which is, as you know, entirely standard practice. Elena looked at Reeves. The FBI agent's face was still professionally neutral, but something behind her eyes had gone very still. This changes things, Cole said. It doesn't eliminate the investigation. Nothing eliminates an investigation. But it does create significant reasonable doubt about the credibility of any testimony from Miss Bradford as a witness. Judges are cautious people, as you know. They do not enjoy trials that the defense can derail by attacking the witness's psychiatric history. He closed his briefcase. My client hopes Miss Bradford will take the opportunity to rest, heal, and reconsider her situation with fresh eyes. He also wanted me to note that he will be at home whenever she is ready to return. He left. The room was quiet for a long moment. Harlow, without inflection. I really hate smart bad guys. He prepared for this, Reeves said, almost to herself. He prepared for her to run. He had this ready before tonight. Elena felt the floor shift slightly under her, the way floors do when the solid thing you were standing on turns out to have been a surface over water. The psychiatric evaluation, she said. He built a defense before he broke my arm. He knew at some point I would try to get out, and he had this ready to use against me. Reeves nodded slowly. How long has he been planning this? I don't know yet, Reeves said, but it means he's been thinking about the exit longer than you have. Noah was on his feet. He had been on his feet since Cole walked through the door. This is insane. You can challenge this, right? You can prove she never met this doctor? Reeves and Harlow exchanged a look. We can, Reeves said, but it takes time. And in the meantime, the DA's office is going to be cautious. They don't want to build a case on a witness the defense can immediately attack as mentally unreliable. So what happens? Noah demanded. He just walks? For tonight, Reeves said. Yes. The second blow came 11 minutes later, when the lobby security called upstairs to report that Garrett Whitfield had been formally advised he could not be detained without cause, and had exited the building. Elena was at the window when his car pulled out of the parking lot. He was on his phone already, unhurried, composure intact. He looked up at her window. He smiled. Just slightly. Just enough. The smile that meant, I still win. She had seen that smile before, after the ribs, after the concussion, after the first time he burned her, careful and precise, in places that clothing would cover. The smile of a man who had never, in his entire life, faced a consequence he couldn't outmaneuver. Elena turned away from the window. Actionable advice from the narrator. If you are watching this and something in you recognizes that smile, that particular expression of someone who has never been held accountable and expects that to continue, please hear this. Documentation is your foundation. Medical records, photographs, written accounts with dates. Keep copies somewhere he cannot access. A locked email account, a trusted friend, a safe deposit box. Start now before you need it, because the day you need it is never the day you have time to build it. That afternoon, Agent Reeves came back with a proposal. We need 48 hours, she said, that's all. The financial evidence is close. We're almost there, but almost is not a courtroom. We need one recorded conversation, one document photographed from inside the office, something that ties him directly to the money, not just circumstantially, but explicitly. Noah. No. Reeves. Miss Bradford. Noah. She has a broken arm. She is 32 weeks pregnant. She just found out her husband had a fake psychiatric profile created to discredit her, and you want to send her back in there wearing a wire. I want to ask her, Reeves said. Those are different things. Elena had been sitting quietly through this, watching Reeves and watching Noah and thinking about Garrett's smile through the window. Tell me exactly what the device looks like, she said. Noah put his head in his hands. It's a watch, Reeves said. Smartwatch, completely normal. Records, continuous audio. Touch the face 3 times rapidly. That's your panic signal. We have a response team that will be on location within 7 minutes. 7 minutes is a long time, Noah said. It is, Reeves agreed. She did not pretend otherwise, which was the thing that made Elena trust her. Elena thought about her daughter, the baby who was kicking right now, steady and insistent, as if she had opinions about this. What does the evidence look like when you have it? Elena asked. Federal charges, Reeves said. Money laundering, racketeering, tax fraud, obstruction, 20 to 30 years. Add the domestic violence charges, the assault. He's not getting out. And the psychiatric evaluation? When we arrest him on federal charges, the credibility of his documentation becomes part of our case to demolish, Reeves said. We have forensic document examiners. We will find out how that evaluation was created. But we need the financial evidence first, because that is what puts him away long enough to keep you safe. Elena put on the watch. Noah took her hand. Whatever you decide, he said. Whatever you decide, I'm here. I know, Elena said. She looked at her brother. This man she had missed for 2 years. This person who had never stopped being her family, even when she had been convinced he had. That's why I can do this. She went home the following morning. Garrett was waiting on the front steps. Fresh flowers in his hand, the expression of a man who had been awake all night with worry, or who was very good at performing that particular face. Elena, after 2 years of close observation, could no longer tell the difference. She let him take her good arm. Let him guide her inside. Let him set the flowers in the vase and bring her the prenatal vitamins and say all the things the script required him to say. The watch recorded every word. The house was exactly as she had left it. Of course it was. She had only been gone 36 hours. But it looked different to her now. The way a room looks different when you step back far enough to see the whole of it. The marble counters, the smart home panel by the door, the small camera she could now identify in the corner of the living room ceiling, angled to cover the couch and the front hallway and the foot of the stairs. Elena sat on the couch and let Garrett bring her water and pain medication and a cup of herbal tea. She watched him move through their kitchen with the practiced ease of a man performing domestic care for an invisible audience. He was very good at it. He had always been very good at it. You should rest today, he said. No activity? The doctor said minimal exertion. I know, Elena said. I'll just sit here. Maybe work on the baby shower thank you notes. The baby shower that had been 3 weeks ago. The one where 7 women she barely knew anymore had sat in their living room, eating cucumber sandwiches, while Garrett moved among them, refilling glasses, and being charming, and Elena had sat, in the center of it all, feeling like a display in a very expensive museum. Good, Garrett said. He kissed her forehead. I have some calls to make. Business that couldn't wait. Of course. He went upstairs. She heard his office door open and close, the lock engaged. She could identify the specific sound of it now, a small mechanical click that had once just been the background noise of her house and now sounded like a countdown. Her phone buzzed. The period tracking app. A message from Reeves. We are monitoring. His car has a tracker. You have support. Just be normal. Normal. Elena almost smiled. She got up slowly and walked to the kitchen, made herself another cup of tea she didn't want, moved quietly through the house the way she had learned to move, efficiently, without drawing attention, taking up as little space as possible. From upstairs, Garrett's voice. Low, controlled, the particular cadence of a man who chose every word before releasing it. She moved to the bottom of the stairs. I understand the risk, he was saying, but I am telling you, it needs to be done today. The Rodriguez account, the Callahan account, all of it, before close of business. Elena stood very still. The watch was recording. Because the timing has changed, Garrett said. There are complications. My wife ended up in the hospital. The FBI has developed an interest. I need those accounts emptied and the funds moved through the construction channel before they get a warrant. A pause. He was listening. I don't care about the fees, he said. I care about the paper trail. Make it disappear. Another pause, and find out who talked, he said, and his voice went cold in the specific way it went cold when Elena had done something wrong and he was deciding how to address it. Someone tipped the FBI. People don't randomly investigate someone like me. Check everyone, every employee, every contractor. Start with that doctor at the hospital. Find out who she contacted and when. Handle it quietly. Elena walked quickly back to the kitchen, sat down, opened the app, and typed with shaking hands. He's moving all money today. Callahan account. Mentioned moving funds before FBI gets warrant. Also, he's investigating who reported to FBI. Mentioned Dr. Collins specifically. Said handle it quietly. Please warn her. She hit send. The message evaporated. Her phone buzzed 40 seconds later. Reeves. Dr. Collins has been notified. Security arranged. You're doing perfectly. One more day. One more day. That afternoon, Garrett came downstairs calmer. The calls had apparently gone as he wanted. He made dinner, elaborate, careful, the performance of a good husband that he always staged in the immediate aftermath of an incident. The remorse window, Elena knew it by heart now. It lasted between 12 hours and 4 days, depending on the severity of what had preceded it. After dinner, she did the dishes, wiped the counters in the exact way he preferred, put everything away in the correct places. The marriage had trained her into a level of domestic precision that had no relationship to who she actually was. She was drying a wine glass when she heard it. Garrett's phone ringing in the other room, a different ringtone. The secondary phone, the one she wasn't supposed to know about, the one she had found 3 months ago and said nothing. She set the glass down quietly. Move the money, Garrett said. Through the Callahan structure, then burn the access trail. He paused. I know what I said. Circumstances have changed. Just do it. He hung up. She heard him pour a drink. She walked back to the sink, stood with her back to the doorway, and breathed. Elena, Garrett said from behind her. She turned. He was leaning against the doorframe with his scotch, watching her. You seem tense, he said. It was not a question. It was a test. My arm hurts, she said. And I'm tired, that's all. He studied her with the particular attention of a man who had spent 2 years calibrating his ability to read her face. She held his gaze. She had learned, in the attorney years, that the key to being believed was not to look away. He nodded finally. Go to bed? I'll be up later. She went upstairs, sat on the edge of the bed, sent one more message through the app. He's burning the access trail tonight. Whatever you need from the accounts, you need it now. Then she thought about the office, the locked office, with the locked drawer and the hidden key, and whatever was in there that he kept behind 2 separate locks. Tomorrow, she thought. Tomorrow, when he goes to his office downtown. She lay down in the dark and listened to the house and counted her breaths the way she had learned to do, and thought about her daughter and waited for morning. Garrett left at 8:14. Elena stood at the bedroom window and watched his car exit through the gate and counted to 60 after the gate closed. Then she counted to 60 again. Then she went to his dresser, opened the top drawer, moved the watch boxes aside, and found the small dish of miscellany where he kept the office key. He thought she didn't notice things. He had never understood that noticing things was how she survived. The office smelled like him. Cologne and paper and the particular scent of someone who was used to being in charge. Elena moved to the desk, started with the top drawer, files. More files than she expected. property documents, purchase agreements, letters with unfamiliar corporate letterheads, wire transfer receipts with numbers that made her breath come shorter. She photographed them methodically, one by one, with her phone propped on her cast, because her dominant hand was the one in the sling, the second drawer. More of the same, and then a folder marked simply offshore in Garrett's controlled handwriting. Bank statements from the Cayman Islands, account numbers, transfer records, dates and amounts that aligned, she realized, with the construction budget overruns Reeves had mentioned. $34 million in accounts she had never known existed. She photographed every page. Third drawer, locked. She found the second key where she expected to find it. Inside a hollowed-out copy of Atlas Shrugged on the third shelf of the bookcase. Because of course he admired that book. Because of course that was the man she had married. She tried the key. The drawer opened. Inside, a Glock 9mm, loaded. Beside it, a folder. She opened the folder. The first thing she saw was a photograph of herself sleeping, then another, then several more, taken through what must have been a pinhole camera or a phone propped somewhere in the bedroom, capturing her at her most vulnerable, her most private, her most defenseless. She set them down and looked at the documents beneath. A prenuptial agreement. She had signed the actual one 3 days before the wedding in a lawyer's office, slightly rushed because Garrett said it was standard. This document was similar, but not identical. She could see the differences in 3 places, clauses that weren't in the original, protections for her that had been quietly removed, her signature at the bottom, her handwriting, her name, a document she had never seen before. Beneath that, a life insurance policy. Elena Bradford Whitfield, insured, Garrett Whitfield, beneficiary. Dated 14 months ago, $2 million. In the event of accidental death, she had never signed this. She had never been told this policy existed. Her signature on it was the same as her signature on the fake prenuptial. The same handwriting, the same pen weight, the same slight, rightward slant she had been told in college she should work on. He had practiced forging her signature. He had done it enough times to get it right. Elena set the folder down on the desk. She sat very still for a moment in her husband's locked office, surrounded by evidence of a plan she had been living inside of without knowing it. He was going to kill her. Not in a burst of rage, not in a moment like last Tuesday when he grabbed her arm and twisted until something gave. He was going to kill her carefully, thoughtfully, in a way that would look like an accident. He had the policy, he had the financial motive, the money he would inherit, the wife who could no longer testify about what she'd seen. He had the method, a loaded gun in a locked drawer that she had never known was there. The pregnancy gave him a timeline. Once the baby was born, she was expendable. Elena stood up. Her legs were not steady, but they held her. She photographed every document in the folder. She put everything back exactly as it was, the way she had learned to do everything in this house. Precisely, perfectly, leaving no evidence of herself. She locked the drawer, replaced the key, left the office, locked the door behind her, went downstairs, sat on the couch, and sent Reeves a message that said, life insurance policy, $2 million, forged signature, also fake prenuptial, also a gun, loaded, locked drawer. I think he's been planning to kill me. The response came back in 40 seconds. We are moving the timeline up. Pack a bag tonight. Small, essentials only. We are getting you out. Then, you did extraordinarily well. Everything you photographed is transmitting. We have what we need. Elena sat with the phone in her lap and let herself feel it. The fear, yes, but beneath the fear, something she had almost forgotten the texture of. She was fighting back. She went to the nursery, found the small duffel bag she had quietly assembled over the past 3 days. Clothes, her mother's jewelry, her birth certificate, Sophie's ultrasound photos. She tucked it behind the baby supply boxes at the back of the closet, behind the curtain of a future she intended to actually live. Then she sat down on the nursery floor, her back against the wall, and called Noah. He answered on the first ring. "How are you?" he said. "I found something," she said, in his office. She didn't go into detail on the phone. She had learned not to. "I need you to be close tonight." "How close?" "2 blocks away." "Done," Noah said. "I'll be there by 8. If you need me before that—" "Eagle Point," she said. "Eagle Point," he confirmed. And then quieter. "Elena, you're almost out." She pressed the phone against her ear and let herself believe him. Garrett came home at 3:20. He was late, and he was angry, and he was carrying the specific tension of someone who had spent the day trying to outmaneuver people smarter than him and was not fully certain he had succeeded. Elena made dinner. She moved through the kitchen with the precision of someone diffusing something, every motion calculated, every word weighed before spoken. She had become, over 2 years, fluent in the language of keeping Garrett Whitfield calm, and she spoke it now with the expertise of someone who understood it might be the last time she ever had to. They ate. He drank. She watched the level in the scotch bottle drop and kept her voice soft and her eyes on her plate and said yes when he talked about the business and said, of course, when he said something she was supposed to agree with. After dinner, he went to his office. She heard the door close. The lock. At 9:45, her phone buzzed. "Reeves. Team in position. Ready when you are. Extract at midnight." At 10:15, Garrett came downstairs, poured another drink, sat on the couch, looked at her. "You should get some sleep," he said. "You look tired." "I will," she said. "In a little while." He went back upstairs. She heard the bedroom door open, the creak of the mattress. At 11:30, his breathing had deepened into sleep. Elena had learned, over 2 years, to identify the exact quality of his sleep by sound alone. The pace of it, the weight of it, whether he was genuinely out or half watching. He was out. She slipped out of bed, moving like she had practiced moving. Without weight, without sound. She went to the nursery, retrieved the duffel bag. She thought about the office, about the gun in the locked drawer. If Garrett woke up during the extraction, if he reached for it, she went back, used the key, opened the locked drawer, lifted the Glock out carefully, with both hands, aware of its weight in a way that felt important. She put it in the duffel bag. Then she went downstairs. The alarm panel, by the front door. She had the code. She had always had the code for the rare doctor's appointments when she left alone. She entered it. The panel displayed 3 words: perimeter locked, override required. She entered the code again. Same result, a different code, her birthday, his birthday, the date they met, perimeter locked, override required. She stood at the locked door with her duffel bag and her broken arm and her 8-month belly and her heart hammering against her ribs. He changed the codes. Tonight, remotely. From his phone, while she thought he was asleep. His voice came from the top of the stairs. "You're not going anywhere, Elena." She turned slowly. He was standing at the top of the stairs in the dim light, barefoot, wearing a gray t-shirt, holding his phone in one hand. He looked completely awake. He had never been asleep. He had been waiting. "How long?" she asked. He came down 2 steps. "I saw the office door was moved. The key position was slightly different." He tilted his head. "I had a backup camera installed in the smoke detector 6 weeks ago. After I noticed you were being watchful. 7 minutes. She needed to keep him talking for 7 minutes. She thought about every cross-examination she had ever conducted. about the strategy of it, about asking questions you already know the answers to, guiding someone toward the thing you need them to say. "You moved the money today," she said. "The Callahan account," his eyes narrowed. "Before close of business," she said. "Because you needed it moved before the FBI could get a warrant, which means you know the FBI has enough to get a warrant, which means you're not as untouchable as you think you are." He came down another 3 steps. His voice was quiet in the way that was worse than loud. "Give me the bag. You forged my signature on a life insurance policy," she said. $2 million. "That's not anger management, Garrett. That's premeditation. 5 more steps." "You planned this from the beginning," she said. "The prenuptial, the policy, the psychiatric evaluation you had ready before you broke my arm. You've been planning an exit for me that I didn't get to consent to." He was at the bottom of the stairs now. She touched the watch face 3 times fast. "Give me the bag," he said again. "There are 7 cameras in this house," she said. "A smart home system you installed to watch me. But the interesting thing about a recording system is that it records everything, including tonight." He reached for her arm, the broken one. The front door came off its frame. The next 4 minutes were chaos, and then they were not. 2 agents through the front door, another through the side entrance that Elena had not known was accessible. Garrett, for the first time in Elena's experience of him, was not the most prepared person in the room. He was also, for the first time, not in charge. They had him in cuffs by the time Harlow walked through the front door eating a protein bar, because apparently the granola bar situation had not improved. He took in the scene, nodded once, looked at Elena. "You okay?" he said. "I think so. Good work, counselor," he said. And that was all. Elena sat on the front steps of the house that had been her prison for 2 years while the agents moved through it. The night air was cold and clean and tasted like possibility. Noah's car came screaming around the corner 3 minutes later. He had been 2 blocks away, exactly as promised. And he was out of it before it fully stopped. He crossed the lawn in 5 strides, stopped in front of her, took her face in both hands and looked at her the way he used to look at her when she was small and had come through something frightening, and he needed to verify with his own eyes that she was still intact. "You're out," he said. "I'm out," she said. He pulled her into a hug that was careful of the cast and not careful of anything else, and she let herself be held by her brother for the first time in 2 years, and she cried. The ugly, convulsive kind. The kind that has been waiting too long and has given up being polite about its arrival. They were still sitting on the front steps when Reeves came out. "We need to take you to a safe location," she said. "Standard procedure until—" She stopped. Looked at Elena. Elena was looking down at herself. "Oh," Elena said, with the particular composure of someone who has used up all their available drama and has nothing left for additional developments. Her water had broken. Harlow, walking out at that moment. "What happened?" "Noah. Her water broke." Harlow looked at the sky briefly. Then, "I'll get the car." The drive to Metro General was 11 minutes. Elena spent 7 of them telling Noah to slow down and 4 of them telling him to go faster. Dr. Collins was waiting at the entrance. She had been notified. She had the look of someone who had cleared her schedule for exactly this. "Let's get you inside," she said simply. The next several hours belonged to a different category of experience entirely. Pain that had direction, pain that was building towards something rather than away from it, pain that Elena found she could hold differently than the other kind. Because this pain was hers, entirely hers, chosen and purposeful and aimed at the future, Noah stayed. He held her hand through every contraction and talked to her about nothing. About the ducks at Eagle Point Lake, about the summer, their parents rented a cabin in Vermont. About a camping trip where Elena had refused to sleep outside because there was a bug and Noah had slept in the car with her, so she wouldn't be alone. Reeves called at 3 in the morning. Elena answered between contractions. Garrett has been charged, Reeves said. Assault, domestic violence, money laundering, racketeering, tax fraud, obstruction of justice, forgery, terroristic threats. That's a long list. It's going to get longer. The psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Philip Weston. He's been dead for 8 months. Garrett stole his credentials. Add identity fraud and fraud upon the court. A pause. He's also been denied bail, Reeves said. Too dangerous? Too much flight risk. He's not coming after you. Elena set the phone down and had a contraction and thought about 22 years in federal prison, and then she stopped thinking about Garrett entirely because she had better things to do. At 2:17 in the morning, Sophie Margaret Bradford arrived. 6 pounds, 9 ounces, a full head of dark hair, eyes that would later settle into a gray-green that matched her Uncle Noah's, which Elena considered a good omen. Noah cried immediately and thoroughly, and later claimed he had something in his eye. Dr. Collins placed Sophie on Elena's chest, and Elena looked at her daughter. This small, complete, opinionated person who had been kicking and alive through the worst weeks of Elena's life, and felt something so large she didn't have a word for it. You made it, she whispered. We made it. Sophie opened her eyes, looked at her mother with the unfocused certainty of the newly arrived. I'm going to teach you everything, Elena promised. I'm going to teach you what love is supposed to look like, so you'll recognize it when it's real and recognize it when it isn't. I'm going to teach you to know your worth so well that no one can ever convince you otherwise. Sophie made a small sound that could have been agreement. Noah leaned over to look at his niece. She's beautiful, he said. She is, Elena agreed. She looks like you. She looks like herself, Elena said, and that's exactly right. 3 days after Sophie was born, Patricia Whitfield walked into the FBI field office on her own. No attorney, no appointment, just a 64-year-old woman in a cashmere coat carrying a banker's box of documents she had been holding for 3 years. Reeves told Elena about it on the phone, and Elena sat in her hospital bed with Sophie asleep on her chest and tried to process the information. His mother? Noah said from the chair. His mother turned on him. His mother saw the photographs, Reeves said. The ones documenting Elena's injuries? Someone at the hospital sent them to her. Reeves paused. She knew about the shell companies, Reeves continued. She knew about the financial irregularities. She had been receiving information for years from a financial advisor who was uncomfortable with what he was seeing and eventually decided his discomfort was worth acting on. She was waiting, she told us, for the moment someone in authority actually looked. What's in the box? Elena asked. 3 years of financial records, Reeves said, corroborating everything we have, including wire transfer authorizations that bear Garrett's direct signature, not a subordinate, not a shell company director, him, personally authorizing money movements to cartel-connected accounts. Elena looked at Sophie's sleeping face. He raised a son who would do this, she said quietly, and she's been carrying that. Reeves, yes, she asked about you and about the baby. Elena was quiet for a moment. Tell her thank you, and tell her, not yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. The following week brought Diane Pearson, the federal prosecutor assigned to the case. She was compact and energetic and had the particular quality of someone who took losses personally and therefore arranged not to have them. She sat across from Elena in the temporary apartment the FBI had arranged. 2 bedrooms, controlled access building, security on the door, and spread case documents across the kitchen table while Sophie slept in the next room. You're my anchor witness, Pearson said. The financial evidence is overwhelming, but financial evidence is abstract. Juries get lost in numbers. They need a face, a story, a person. You are that person. Elena nodded. I need to prepare you for what the defense will do, Pearson said. They will attack you. They will say you fabricated this. They will say you wanted his money, and this was your exit strategy. They will bring up every complicated moment in your marriage and suggest that you misremembered, misinterpreted, or outright lied. I know, Elena said. I used to do this job. I know how it works. Pearson looked at her with something like relief. Good. Then you know that the best preparation is not a script. It's the truth, told simply and completely, without embellishment and without minimization. Just the facts, Elena said. Just the facts, Pearson agreed. The evidence speaks for itself. Your job is to put a human face on it. They worked for 3 hours that afternoon. Pearson asked questions. Elena answered them. They went through the timeline, the injuries, the escalation, the isolation, the financial documents Elena had photographed, the recorded conversations, the life insurance policy. When they finished, Pearson gathered her documents. One more thing, she said. Cassandra Monroe is testifying as a cooperating witness. Her 6 months of access to his financial records corroborates everything you gathered in your 48 hours. Together, the two of you have built a case that I am going to find very satisfying to present. Elena paused. Was it all an act? The affair? Pearson considered this. I think, she said carefully, that Agent Monroe is someone who is very good at her job. And I think Garrett Whitfield is someone who is used to being the smartest person in the room and failed in this instance to notice that he wasn't. Elena almost smiled. He does hate that. Yes, Pearson said. He's going to hate the next several decades too. I intend to make sure of it. Actionable advice from the narrator. Document everything. If you are in a situation where you feel unsafe, where someone controls your movements or your money or your ability to see the people you love, start creating a record. Write down dates and details immediately after incidents. Photograph injuries. Keep a record in a secure location he cannot access. This is not disloyalty. This is not betrayal. This is survival. And survival is always justified. The months between the arrest and the trial were not easy months. Elena went to therapy twice weekly with a trauma specialist named Dr. Ann Morrison, who was brisk and warm and had the gift of making difficult things feel survivable by breaking them into small enough pieces. She had nightmares. She checked the locks obsessively. She became aware of this when Noah pointed out, gently, that she had checked the front door 4 times in the 10 minutes since they arrived for Sunday dinner. I know, she said. I'm working on it. You don't have to apologize for it, Noah said. You lived in a surveillance state for 2 years. Your nervous system is going to take some time to recalibrate. She is thriving, Sophie, with the aggressive enthusiasm of an infant who has decided that being alive is interesting and intends to pursue it fully. At 3 months, she was tracking faces. At 4 months, she was laughing. At 5 months, she had opinions about everything, expressed loudly and at inconvenient hours. Elena found, to her own surprise, that she was not a bad mother. She had been afraid of this, afraid that 2 years of having herself systematically dismantled had left her without the resources to build something new. But Sophie seemed to disagree, and Sophie was, in Elena's assessment, a reliable authority on the subject. Rachel came every Tuesday. She brought coffee and stayed for hours and talked about nothing and everything and the ease of it, the simple, uncomplicated ease of a friendship that had survived Garrett's attempts to kill it. Felt like a gift Elena had not known she was missing until she had it back. Noah came every Sunday. He always brought food. He had, somewhere along the way, become a genuinely excellent cook, which he attributed to a YouTube rabbit hole during a period of insomnia, and Elena attributed to the fact that he had always been better at caring for people than he knew. The trial was set for November. November 7th was cold and overcast, which felt appropriate. Elena dressed carefully. Conservative navy dress. Not the one he had bought her, never that one again, but one she had chosen herself from a store she had walked into alone on a Wednesday afternoon because she could. Low heels, her mother's pearl earrings, her hair down, the way she had worn it before Garrett decided she looked more appropriate with it up. Noah and Rachel flanked her on the courthouse steps. "You ready?" Rachel said. Elena looked at the building, at the steps, the columns, the flag. "No," she said honestly, "but I'm going anyway." "That's the same thing," Noah said. Inside, the courtroom had the gravity of a place where things are decided. Wood paneling, high ceilings. The jury box to the left, the judge's bench ahead, the defense table where Garrett sat in a charcoal suit with Harrison Cole beside him. He looked the same. That was the thing that was hardest to absorb. That someone could do all of the things he had done and still look exactly like himself, still carry himself with the confidence of a man who expected to be believed. He saw her. His face shifted. Rage, instantly controlled, the mask dropping into place with the smoothness of long practice. She met his eyes and did not look away. Diane Pearson's opening was clean and controlled and devastating. She walked the jury through a marriage that had looked like success and functioned like a prison. She walked them through the financial crimes. $47 million laundered through 11 shell companies over 3 years. She walked them through the medical records, the photographs, the recordings. "This is not a complicated case," Pearson said in closing. "It is a case about a man who believed the rules did not apply to him, who believed he could hurt people without consequence because he always had. Your job, the job you swore an oath to do, is to inform him otherwise." Harrison Cole's opening was polished and expensive and devoted to the theory that Elena Bradford was a woman of limited mental stability, who had, in partnership with the federal government, constructed an elaborate fiction to extract herself and significant financial resources from a marriage she found inconvenient. He used the word bitter 4 times in 12 minutes. The witnesses came in order: Dr. Collins, Noah, Agent Reeves, 2 forensic accountants, Patricia Whitfield, who sat in the stand with a composure that must have cost her something and described, in precise and damning detail, the financial records she had been holding for 3 years, and then Cassie Monroe. Cassie Monroe took the stand in a charcoal blazer and answered Pearson's questions with the calm efficiency of someone who had spent 6 months gathering evidence against a man and was now presenting it with professional satisfaction. She corroborated every financial detail. She described conversations in which Garrett had explicitly discussed the structure of the money laundering operation, and then Harrison Cole cross-examined her and attempted to characterize her as a spurned woman and a federal plant. And Cassie Monroe regarded him with the particular patience of someone who has heard much more threatening arguments from much more intimidating people. "Is it true," Cole said, "that you engaged in an intimate relationship with my client?" "I was undercover," Monroe said. "Is it true that you developed feelings?" "I developed evidence," Monroe said. "There's a distinction." In the gallery, Harlow made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Then it was Elena's turn. She walked to the stand, sat down, placed her hands in her lap, looked at Diane Pearson, and waited. Tell us about your marriage, Pearson said. And Elena told the truth. She told it without embellishment and without minimization, in the clear, organized way of someone who had once cross-examined liars for a living and understood that the truth, told simply, is the most effective thing in any room. She told them about the beginning, the gala, the courtship, the way he had made her feel chosen. She told them about the erosion, the slow, methodical dismantling of her career, her friendships, her sense of herself. She told them about the first time, and the second time, and the accumulation of times that had taught her to move quietly and speak carefully and take up as little space as possible. She told them about the night her arm broke, the stairs that were not stairs, the car ride with the Pottery Barn boxes already selected as props. She told them about the X-ray room and her brother's face when you saw Noah walk in. Pearson said, "What did you think?" Elena was quiet for a moment. I thought, the secret is out. Everything is going to change now, whether I want it to or not. She paused. I was terrified, and I was relieved. I had been waiting for someone to not listen to me, to see what was real, rather than what I was trained to say. Cole's cross-examination lasted 3 hours. He called her bitter. He called her motivated by financial interest. He suggested her memory was unreliable, her testimony rehearsed, her account shaped by 2 years of therapy with someone predisposed to see abuse everywhere. Elena answered every question directly. She did not deflect. She did not become emotional in ways that could be characterized as instability. She simply answered, clearly and without excess, until Cole ran out of questions. When she stepped down, she walked past the defense table. Garrett leaned slightly toward her. "Dead," he said, barely audible. "You hear me? You are dead." Elena stopped, turned to face the courtroom, raised her voice to a level that carried clearly. "Did anyone else hear that?" she said. The judge's gavel came down. Multiple jurors had turned to look. The court reporter's fingers were moving. Cole put his hand on Garrett's arm. One more piece of evidence, recorded by 11 witnesses simultaneously. Harlow, in the gallery, said nothing, but Elena caught his eye, and he gave her one small nod of appreciation. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on 15 of 16 counts. The attempted murder charge, insufficient direct evidence, the jury foreman explained, the insurance policy and the forged documents established intent, but not a completed plan. Everything else, guilty. As they led Garrett out in handcuffs, he turned to look at her one final time. She looked back, not with triumph, not with relief, but with something simpler, the knowledge that it was over. Elena walked out of the courthouse into the cold November air, with Noah on her left and Rachel on her right, and Harlow somewhere behind her, saying he knew a good diner nearby if anyone wanted lunch. She stopped on the steps, let the air hit her face, and cried. Not the ugly, waiting kind, the releasing kind, the kind that means something is over and something else is beginning, and your body knows it, even when your mind is still catching up. "I'm proud of you," Noah said. "I'm proud of me," Elena said, and meant it. 1 year later, Elena Bradford, licensed attorney, stood in front of a room of 17 women in a community center on the east side of the city. The chairs were mismatched. The coffee was mediocre. The light was fluorescent and slightly aggressive. She wouldn't have changed any of it. "My name is Elena," she said, "and I am a domestic violence survivor." The words came easier now. They had been sharp once, had required effort to form. Now they sat naturally, the way any accurate sentence sits, without apology. "I want to talk to you tonight about something nobody tells you when you leave," she said. "Everyone tells you leaving is brave. Everyone talks about the day you walk out. What they don't tell you is that freedom is not a day. It's a process. Some days it feels like flying. Some days you check the locks 4 times and sleep with the light on and wake up reaching for a phone to see if he called. She looked at the women in the room. Both of those days are real, she said. Both of them are yours. She told her story. Not all of it. She had learned to calibrate what each room needed. She told them about the night in the X-ray room, about the choice to go back and wear the wire, about standing at the locked front door while her husband came down the stairs. She told them about Sophie. When I was deciding whether to fight back, Elena said, I thought about my daughter, not in an abstract way, in a very specific way. I thought, what is she going to learn watching how I live? What am I teaching her about what love is, what she deserves? She let that sit for a moment. Your children are watching, she said, and so more importantly, are you. What you show yourself you deserve is what you'll teach them to accept. After the meeting, a young woman, maybe 25, with the particular careful posture of someone who was still learning to take up space again, pulled Elena aside. I left 2 weeks ago, the woman said. I'm terrified all the time. Did you ever want to go back? Yes, Elena said, in the beginning, when everything was overwhelming and I didn't know how to manage a broken arm and a newborn and a federal trial. There were moments when the familiar felt safer than the unknown. What stopped you? My daughter, Elena said simply. I looked at her and thought, not for her, and honestly, not for me either. I had already decided I was worth more. I just had to keep deciding it, every day, until I believed it. The woman nodded. You're not alone, Elena said. None of us are. Garrett Whitfield was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison with no parole eligibility for 15. The sentence was handed down on a Thursday in February, in a courtroom Elena chose not to attend because she had already received everything she needed from that process and saw no reason to give him an audience for whatever performance he had prepared. Harlow texted her the verdict. 3 words, 22 years. Lunch? She texted back, yes, your turn to pick. He picked the diner. The coffee was excellent. He told her about 3 other cases without using any names. She told him about Sophie's new ability to pull herself upright on the coffee table and her apparently boundless enthusiasm for sweet potatoes. It was, Elena thought, a perfectly ordinary lunch. And ordinary, she was discovering, was the thing she had been trying to get back to the whole time without knowing it. She started at the advocacy organization in March, marketing and communications, using the skills she had developed in her attorney years, the ability to shape a story, to make the truth land where it needed to land, in service of something that felt like it mattered. Her supervisor was a woman named Grace, who had started the organization after her sister's divorce, and who ran the office with the organized energy of someone who understood that every day wasted was a day someone spent in a situation they deserved to be out of. Elena fit immediately and entirely, in the way you fit into a space that was designed for you without knowing you were coming. On a Sunday in April, Noah brought his girlfriend to family dinner for the first time. Her name was Jennifer. She was an environmental engineer, and she looked at Noah with exactly the combination of warmth and exasperation that suggested she understood him perfectly and had decided to keep him anyway. You're analyzing her, Noah told Elena, in the kitchen. I'm saying hello, Elena said. You made eye contact for 11 seconds when she described her thesis research. That's a normal amount of eye contact. You were assessing her. I was saying hello, Elena repeated, and also briefly assessing her. She turned back to the stove. She's very good. You should keep her. Noah looked quietly delighted. Rachel was there with her girlfriend Maya, who had also passed Elena's assessment with high marks, and who had, over the past year, become part of the ecosystem of people Elena was building her life around. A chosen family, assembled from the wreckage of the old one, constituted of people who saw her clearly and stayed anyway. Sophie sat in her high chair at the head of the table, presiding over dinner with the authority of someone who had decided she was in charge and was waiting for everyone else to catch up. She was 13 months old, enthusiastically mobile, and had recently developed strong preferences about which songs were acceptable as lullabies. Elena tonight was not, currently, on the approved list. Elena looked around the table. At Noah laughing at something Jennifer said. At Rachel splitting a piece of bread with Maya. At Sophie attempting to feed herself and achieving approximately 40% accuracy. This, Elena thought, this is what I was fighting for. Not the verdict, not the sentence, not even the freedom exactly. This, the ordinary Sunday. The mediocre wine, the argument about whose turn it was to bring dessert, the kind of evening that is not remarkable in any way except that it is safe, and it is real, and everyone at the table chose to be there. On a Wednesday evening, in May, a letter arrived from prison. Garrett's handwriting. She recognized it before she saw the return address. She stood in her kitchen, holding the envelope for a long moment. Sophie was asleep. The apartment was quiet. The locks were checked. She had checked them. It was fine. She was working on it. She thought about opening it. Then she walked to the paper shredder Noah had given her. For moments like this, he had said, she fed the envelope through, watched it become strips, watched the strips become smaller. She did not feel triumph. She did not feel anger. She felt the particular clean blankness of someone who has closed a door and has no interest in opening it again. No, she said, to no one in particular. The answer is no. She went to her journal, wrote, I shredded the letter without reading it. I feel like myself. That's enough. The narrator's final note to anyone who needs to hear it tonight. If you are in a relationship where you have forgotten who you were before it started, that is not love aging you. That is control erasing you. The woman you were before is not gone. She is buried under the weight of someone else's need to diminish her. But she is still there, still intact, still capable of everything she was before. The moment someone believes you, a brother on a night shift, a doctor who doesn't look away, a detective who actually listens, everything can change. You are allowed to let it change. Elena Bradford spent 2 years forgetting she was someone. It took a broken arm and a brother in the right place at the right time and the most difficult week of her life to remember. She has not forgotten since. Sophie Margaret Bradford is 13 months old and has never spent a single day of her life afraid of the sound of footsteps. That is the whole point. That is everything. If this story moved you, hit like, leave a comment. Tell me which moment stayed with you. Was it the smoke detector? Patricia walking into the FBI office? Noah at the bottom of the stairs? I read every comment, and your words matter. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Courage comes in unexpected forms. So do the best stories. Thank you for being here. You are never alone. Editorial note: the content you have just heard was carefully researched, constructed, and manually edited by our team. Not to entertain alone, but to carry meaning. Every story we tell is built with intention. To offer insight, to validate experience, and to remind anyone who needs reminding that survival is not the end of the story. It is only the beginning. Thank you for listening.